Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ with a lot of questions concerning quarterbacks this offseason in the NFL, and now at least one of them has been answered. According to our Jason Locken, Carson Wentz officially out of Philadelphia and on his way to Indianapolis. Now, we've known for a while that Wentz was on his way out, and the Colts, they did need somebody since Phillip Rivers retired. So in exchange for Wentz, the Eagles get a 2021 third rounder, so for this upcoming draft, and a second rounder that could potentially be a first rounder depending on how Wentz plays in 2022. But what does this mean for your fantasy teams? And for that, we bring in our fantasy expert, Jamey Eisenberg. Jamey, I want to start with the Eagles here because that is what you have now tweeted out about, that you have Jalen Hurts as your quarterback 9 as of right now. So give me the impact for the Eagles when it comes to fantasy.
Well, Amanda, I think what we saw last year was a guy who's going to be mobile and run around, and we love that for fantasy. Anytime you get those rushing yards for a quarterback on top of what he can do as a passer, and there's still a lot of room to grow for him as a passer. But what he showed us gives you a lot of reason for hope and optimism. And first, let's face it, he's got to still be the starting quarterback. There's a lot of thought that maybe the Eagles are still going to address the position in the draft. If they do so in the top 10, then it's a problem for Jalen Hurts. But if he is the guy under center week 1, you got to be excited about what the opportunity is there. Because as we saw, let's say, for example, Lamar Jackson, when he took over for Joe Flacco in his rookie season and had some struggles as a passer, but showed you that rushing ability. I don't think Jalen Hurts has that type of upside going into his sophomore season, but it would not surprise me if he is a top 10 guy challenging to be a top 5 guy based on those rushing yards.
All right, let's talk about what this means for the Colts there with Wentz now. I mean, are you upgrading Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr.? I mean, is this all good news for them? Is there anything bad here?
There's nothing bad for those guys in particular, but I'm glad you brought up Michael Pittman because this is an incomplete receiving core right now. We don't know what they're going to do with T.Y. Hilton. We don't know what they're going to do at the tight end position. We were kind of hoping that they were going to throw in Zach Ertz in this trade and make things a little bit better for Carson Wentz going to the Colts. But if Hilton leaves and they don't bring in somebody significant to replace him, and we're talking about Michael Pittman and Zach Pascal and hopefully Paris Campbell as the top 3 guys, that's not a great situation for Carson Wentz as a fantasy quarterback. He better be ready to hand off a lot to Jonathan Taylor. So Taylor's still going to be a potential top 5 running back. I have him ranked as a top 5 guy right now. Love the upside for him. And Wentz is going to be somebody that's interesting because if they do give him some weapons, the offensive line in Indianapolis will help Carson Wentz. We've seen him when he had a great offensive line in Philadelphia. It helped them during their Super Bowl run. It helped him when he was a potential MVP candidate before the knee injury, before the back injury. That's what made Carson Wentz successful. Even after those injuries, he still played well at times when the offensive line was fine. So hopefully he gets some weapons around him that can help him. But right now you're not drafting Carson Wentz as a number 1 fantasy quarterback. He's a borderline number 2 guy. So better in super flex leagues, better in 2 quarterback leagues right now. But we'll see what the Colts do to add weapons around Michael Pittman. And I do think Pittman is a guy you got to keep an eye on as a sleeper for sure because the upside is definitely there if he is the number 1 wide receiver.
All right, Jamey Eisenberg, thanks so much for your vision on what that means when it comes to fantasy. By the way, I'm sure there will be an emergency pod on this Fantasy Football Today. That is the podcast belonging to Jamey Eisenberg and crew. Make sure to download and subscribe. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.